Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today Manchester United have beaten Nottingham Forest 3-2. And honestly, I think all I need to say for today's video is football, eh? What a odd, peculiar game of football. Of course, it all started so terribly. Absolutely terrible start for Manchester United. 2-0 down inside 5 minutes, two very sloppy goals. A Manchester United corner, which they lose the ball, counter-attack. Wan-Bissaka doesn't win his header. Rashford doesn't put a shoulder in. Onana, no idea what he's really doing for the goal. Crisis. We're then watching the highlights and the replay of the goal. In that time, United have lost possession on the kickoff. The ball's been put in the channel. Dallow's gone out to defend it, giving away a free kick. The free kick comes into the box. Casemiro loses his man completely. Everyone basically stands there and goes, oh, he just headed it in. That's a problem. We're 2-0 down at Old Trafford 5 minutes in. And it was not a good start at all. However, as we know, things changed. So today I want to talk about the tactics which saw United dominating this game enough to allow them to win the football match. But before we get into that, I do have a Just Giving page linked in the description down below for Macmillan Cancer support. If you could make a donation, whether it's 5 pence, £5,000, 50 quid, whatever it may be, any sort of donation would be greatly appreciated. The charity means a lot to me and my family, so if you could make a small donation, I really would appreciate it. But let's get into the tactics used by Erik ten Hag. Because I thought, aside from that, whatever that was in the first 5 minutes, I thought apart from that, United were largely in control of the game. And a lot of the reason for that was because, as we predicted in our tactical preview, Forest just had no interest in really putting pressure on the ball. This is a game where we're not really going to talk about Onana's passing in the slightest, really. And that's because Forest weren't pushing men up into these positions, instead they were dropping off. And as a result, United had so much possession in this game. I think inside the first 20 minutes, it was like 92% possession for United, something like that. United really heavily dominated the ball. It was all about what setup are you going to use and can you break Forest down. So in terms of how United looked to do that, it was mainly in a back three shape. Something like Lisandro Martinez at left centre-back, Rafael Varane as the middle centre-back in the first half, Aaron Wan-Bissaka as the right centre-back, and then Casemiro kind of on the right side of a double pivot, alongside Diogo Dalot, Bruno Fernandes and Christian Eriksen pushing further forward. Martial, of course, returning to the side up front. It was good to see him play. This was the sort of shape which United were using. Now, one thing we saw in this game, in this particular shape, was so many rotations. At times, Casemiro was dropping in between the centre-backs, and I actually quite liked it when he was doing that. I thought he was doing well in those areas. But there were also situations when Wan-Bissaka was much higher, Lisandro Martinez would come across, Dalot would drop deeper, or Eriksen would drop deeper. There were so many different rotations in this game, which was good to see. I do fear at times you can almost rotate a little bit too much, and players kind of lose track of the position they're meant to be in. But United just about got it right, I think. I think Ten Hag needs to make sure players aren't rotating too much. But, you know, I wasn't too bothered about what was happening in these areas. I thought United done okay. And like I said, they had the base here to really build possession and dominate. Now, as a result of building possession, and like I said, Forest being quite passive, United really taking control, even Wan-Bissaka in his position was given the licence to move much further forward in support of the attack, and at times it would even become a back two, or like I said, there was lots of rotations, different players could drop in. Importantly, what United were doing though, was completely overloading the centre of the park, because there was often 4 players in this sort of box shape. Now at times it could also be a diamond if Casemiro moved deeper, Dalot moved a little bit higher, something like this. Or at times Dalot would be the deepest, Bruno Fernandes would push up into the 10, Casemiro would be in the right centre midfield spot. But always, United were overloading the ball in these areas. And Morgan Gibbs-White and Brennan Johnson didn't really do enough from a defensive point of view for Forest to really tuck in and make life difficult in these areas of the pitch. They just didn't particularly do it, allowing United to move the ball inside. And like I said, when you've got a diamond in this area, you're going to control the ball, really. You are going to dictate tempo, especially when you've got someone like Martial as well, who done a decent job at times of dropping in and kind of holding the ball up and linking the play. Intensity-wise, not on it, which was a concern, but, you know, we know he's lacking sharpness and match fitness, so we'll let him off for this game. But I thought he'd done okay in this area, considering it was his first minutes of the season. But in general, you know, United has taken control. The problem was the spacing and the distances. The system isn't actually horrible, kind of this off-balance 3-2 shape or a 3-4-3 diamond at times. The system isn't too bad. It's more the intelligence of the players which I had the problem with in this game. Because what we saw was players just getting way too close to each other. So for example, Bruno Fernandes would push forward up onto the last line, which is going to cause Nottingham Forest to drop deeper. We're also going to see let's say, Dalot, often pushing right up into this sort of position here, really high. Casemiro would then do the same, but got Wan-Bissaka is also pushing forward, and Eriksen was the one who was kind of a bit keener to drop deep to get on the ball, as you'd expect. The problem this creates for United is there's too many players in the middle of the park, and this is where you've got to get a balance. You want to push players forward to overload that Forest team, but you've still got to have spacing. If all players are on top of each other, you've got nowhere you can move to. And that's kind of what was happening here. Like I said, especially with Casemiro moving forward, United were kind of getting the ball in these areas, firing passes through, and I mean, Lisandro Martinez was brilliant on the ball in this game. Absolutely incredible. But they're firing passes into these areas, and because Forest got all the bodies in here, it just became really crowded and really messy. Forest just kept dropping deeper and deeper, and I mean, this United line ended up so high up the pitch, it was absolutely ridiculous. There were situations where you'd kind of have a back three of Rafael Varane, Lisandro Martinez and Eriksen trying to build possession, and pretty much everyone else was lined up on the edge of the Forest box. United pushing players super high, but because Forest was so passive, it just about kind of worked. So United of course scored 3 goals in this game, so it looks quite good, and they dominated possession, so it looks like they were in control. I think they got away with it a little bit, because Forest just weren't very good. Now, to be fair, to go back to a positive, what I did like more about this United performance was the lack of hoof spam forward football passes. That didn't make sense. Spam the football forward passes. We didn't see as much of that in this game. We didn't see Casemiro constantly pinging it forward. Still, the pass completion rate wasn't as high as you would want, particularly from Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes, but it was a bit more patient on the ball. We often saw Lisandro Martinez telling players to slow down, Christian Eriksen doing the same, and that did seem to help. It was also helped by the fact that Forest were just dropping super deep, which allowed United to take control of the ball, and it always felt like United were in control, apart from that first 5 minutes where it was just chaos ball. United always felt in control from a tactical point of view, but I still don't think it was optimal. The spacing wasn't quite right. Players were almost getting in each other's way a little bit. Now, 2 players which I think did play well, actually let's go for 3 players. Bruno Fernandes I thought was really good. Whether that was dropping deeper to try and get the ball at times to help progress the ball forward, or his brilliant assist for one of the goals, or his really well taken penalty, his work rate, everything, Bruno Fernandes was really good in this game. And I actually thought he was quite good in his duels as well. Good in a lot of tackles, he played well. But the 2 players which really impressed me was Antony on the right hand side, being the first one. A player who of course gets a lot of criticism. It's only this week I've been saying he needs to do more. In this game, he done more. And the reason he was so good in this game is because he played with variation to his game. Now, at times, that meant swapping wings with Rashford entirely, which I've been begging for. You would have seen it on stream the other day. But also, it's just changing the way he's playing. At times, he cuts in and shoots, and he had a brilliant effort, which Turner done well to save. I thought it was going in all the way. But there were times, and, you know, this might come as a shock to anyone that didn't watch the game, where Antony was going on the outside. Don't check your earphones. You heard that right. Antony was going on the outside, and it was actually working really well, because Ola Aina just didn't really know how to deal with it. And Antony genuinely was one of United's best attackers, because he had the Forest defence constantly retreating. Now, at times, he still needs to work on, like, getting those passes off. Sometimes he's a bit too casual with it. But in general, I think Antony's played really well, especially in the first half. I think he was one of United's best players, if not maybe just about the best. Really good down the side of the pitch. So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, JerseyFIFA.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFIFA for 10% off when you order. But the other one, Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford on the left wing, when you get him in isolated 1-versus-1 situations, which United done all the time, you know, building the ball down this side, then pushing players forward, overloading that Forest back line, getting the ball out to the left-hand side where Marcus Rashford can isolate Sergio Aurier. This is the recipe for success for United. Marcus Rashford, 1-versus-1 up against a fullback, is terrifying. I can't believe it's taken Ten Hag until the 3rd game to figure this out. He's so good from this position, and he makes 2 of the goals. The first one with absolutely brilliant play. He kind of stands Aurier up, then he has that burst of pace which just no other United player has. Cuts the ball across the box. United had about 5 players in the box at the time. We saw Martial in there, Eriksen was in there, I believe Casemiro was in there, and Bruno Fernandes. The ball comes in, Christian Eriksen gets himself across at the front post and puts the ball into the back of the net. But it all comes from really good play from Marcus Rashford. But then also we saw something similar for another goal as well, where he gets himself in this sort of position here. This time it was up against Danilo, and he's just got too much pace. He's so direct, he beats his man and wins the penalty. Was it a little bit fortunate to win the penalty? Potentially, but he looks so much more threatening from this side of the pitch. What I would say about the first two games was that Marcus Rashford wasn't particularly poor, but just uninvolved, just anonymous. We didn't really see him. In this game, you could really tell that Marcus Rashford was playing. Now, I still want to see more intensity from him off the ball and stuff like that, but I thought on the ball, when he gets it, he's just front-footed and takes on his defender, and that is brilliant. And that ultimately is how United went on to win this game. Of course, Forest went down to 10 men as well, which massively helped. But in general, United controlled possession. I don't think the system was optimal in terms of the spacing of the players, but players like Antony, Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes all had pretty darn good individual displays, which was enough to get United the 3 goals. In terms of that first 5-6 minutes, it's borderline not worth talking about, because it wasn't even a tactical problem or a structural issue. It's just players switching off and not performing in the moments. However, despite, winning the last 85 minutes 3-0, I do have a couple of complaints about the United performance. One of those would be the spacing. The spacing in possession has to improve. Players need to pick up their positions much better, because not only does it make you poor on the ball in terms of the angles are poor, so it's difficult to break a team down, but also when you lose possession, if your spacing's off, it makes your counter press off as well. And there were situations where Forest were able to get out of the counter press because United just weren't close enough. I also think still United have to be way better in the duels. Casemiro was a little bit better and won a couple of really good tackles, but in my opinion, he's still diving in a little bit too much. Eriksen just physically just can't win a duel, basically. I think Bruno Fernandes done quite well, but in general, United still need to improve that counter-pressing structure. And then the other thing, and this is on Ten Hag as well as the players, is game management. You're playing 10 men for the last however long it was, I can't remember now. Just manage the game, keep possession, keep the ball ticking over, have good temperament, make good decisions on the ball. United didn't have that. Rashford suddenly tries to score every time he gets the ball, which was just odd. I don't really know what he was doing. Bruno Fernandes a little bit similar as well. When you're 3-2 up at Old Trafford against 10 men, just keep the ball. Don't invite pressure. Don't invite those long throws, those free kicks, those corners into the box. There's no need to do it. Just slow down. Just chill. Take your time on the ball. Use your technical quality. By this stage, United had Sancho on the pitch as well, who again did impress me. Just keep the ball. Just slow down. Keep the ball for your side a little bit. So those would be my main concerns. The mentality and the lack of alertness in the first 5 minutes, not good enough. Then, to be fair, to counter that, the reaction was really good. We've seen this United team completely collapse before. Didn't happen in this game, which made me really happy. I was really happy to see that. However, in terms of mentally, intelligence-wise, there was a problem with the spacing a little bit. And then intensity-wise and physicality-wise, there was a bit of problem with the duels. And then also, again, going back to intelligence, composure towards the end of the game was lacking a little bit. So, I think my reaction to this performance and this result is a little bit mixed. It's always going to be when you go 2-0 down inside 5 minutes, but win 3-2. I think you're always going to be a little bit unsure. That's kind of how I feel about the game. United were the better team. United deserved to win it, in my opinion. Another day they win that game 3-0. If you put a number 9, a proper striker in that team, United would have scored another 2 or 3 goals. Some really dangerous balls put across the box. So I thought a lot of positives. A couple of little things which still need to be sorted. A bit of fortune against a not a great Forest side who didn't particularly perform on the day. And of course the sending off and the penalty as well. So I guess that's my conclusion. 3 points, 3 goals. If you'd have offered me this at the start of the day, I'd have taken it. The 3 points is the most important thing. United still need improvement. They still need work. Rasmus Højlund is needed in this side really badly. A controlling midfielder is still needed in this side really, really badly. But what was needed the most was 3 points at Old Trafford and some attacking football with some goals to get the crowd going. And at the end of the day, United delivered that. So that's all I've got to say for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.